Greg Bedard scrolling his phone, looking for some good news on the field in Foxborough, where the Patriots fall to the Raiders 20-13, and the season is over. Greg, already. Lots of promise turns to gloom and doom. We're going to dissect it all here with Greg, who's joining us, and will be joining us all year long on the Patriots postgame show to kick things off before he has to move on and do several other things, including write for Boston Sports Journal, which you got to go and make sure that you subscribe to BSJ, best sports coverage in town. You get to hear from Greg Bedard and Mike Giardi, of course. The show, as you know, is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy when you sign up for Prize Picks today. Get 50 instantly when you use the code CLNS. And Greg, let's just get into it. There's so much to unpack here, but you definitely think what the conversation's going to revolve a lot around is concern over Drake Maye and the way that he looked, particularly in the second half today. So without the benefit of film, what do you feel, or what did you see out of Maye today? Because he looked off, he looked tentative, he looked amped up at times, he looked uneasy, he was missing open receivers, he was doing a lot of things that you don't want to see in year two. And to me, he looked not like the version that we saw last year, who, while imperfect, was making plays and a lot of different plays. He just didn't look like that guy today. He just looked off for most of the game, even in the first half. Where he definitely made some mistakes there and had a couple of bad drives and a couple of bad throws. But overall, Drake Maye's performance.
I didn't think it was very good, John. I think it was a continuation of what we saw in his appearances in the preseason. Especially the games. He was better in the joint practices. And this is sort of, what I've been talking about for a couple weeks. I mean, if you have big plans for the Patriots this season, and I think a lot of fans do, then that includes Drake Maye being really good. And Drake Maye today was, maybe average, maybe. And I think that a lot of it is going to be a discussion about, it's going to be, the fans, they probably love Drake Maye and they're going to blame Josh McDaniels. It's probably, a little bit of both. I mean, look, if Drake Maye hits some of the open receivers that are out there, it's a different game. But I just thought that Drake Maye, he just looked sloppy, inconsistent. Basically, you remember the Vikings preseason game? It was basically a continuation of that. Like, his feet are getting wonky again, throwing high, missing guys. He had the interception. Yeah, there was pressure, but that's something that he's got to sense and not put the ball into danger. He almost got strip sacked at the end of the game by Max Crosby. He did at one point, and I thought the ball came out very easily out of his hands. I didn't think there was, too much contact there, and that goes to, wet ball, smaller hands for Drake Maye. So I think that today it was not a good start for Drake Maye, and it's going to be, now people are going to turn to why. And I think that I think it's a work in progress. This is why I, reduced my season prediction on the team, because it's being in a new offense, new coaching, what they're asking him to do is just going to take time to adjust. I mean, not good in week one, but you're hoping that, there's just progress each and every week.
Yeah. And you mentioned people are going to come for somebody, right?
Yep.
They want scalps, and you've seen it already on social media. Just, I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked how much dialogue there is right now about just determining, based off of this performance or whatever we saw in the preseason, Drake Maye's not him. I've got people in my mentions already saying we got to look for a new guy next year, which is pretty insane. Considering how we felt about this coming in. But the thing that you said is 100% right. Like, the team's not good enough everywhere to be competitive unless Drake Maye is something special or starts to show that he's a little bit special. So you're saying it's an either or thing, where it's going to be on McDaniels or it's going to be on Maye, and might be a polarizing discussion. I've wondered the whole way through whether the marriage itself has been working out in the early going. And I'm not saying that you need an annulment right now, but I do wonder if Drake Maye to me looked like a guy who was more worried about what he's not supposed to do as opposed to what he's supposed to do. How much of that is on the way that McDaniels runs an offense and how much trouble he might be having just working within the confines of that?
You know, I'm sure some people are going to say that. I mean, I also,
but you don't think it,
you know, well, not really. I mean, you know, look, I thought McDaniels did a good job, at least in the pass game, at scheming guys open. I don't know why the running game was not working today. We'll have to check on the film with that. That was a surprise to me that they weren't be able to run the ball better. And then suddenly they're in a game where Drake May's got to drop back 43 times, which I don't think is good. I mean, I think the formula is they run the ball, Drake Maye throws 25 times. But, you know, if Drake Maye doesn't, you know, miss some of the bunnies that he did today, I think things look a lot different. I think that, you know, when you're talking about Drake Maye and the philosophy and Josh McDaniels and all that, and I've said this before and I got blowback on it, but I believe this because I've been around different quarterbacks, and it's not just Tom Brady. But, you know, when you look at Drake Maye, when he's out there against the Vikings, and then in this game, like, you know, does it look like he's a tactician? Does it look like he's, you know, working on his footwork and his mechanics and trying to be, how do I get better? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I just get the impression that Drake Maye is just sort of like a, you know, shrug and, you know, well, we'll get him next time type of guy. And I think there's going to be some push and pull there where I know, you know, Josh McDaniels is used to doing it a certain way, not just with Tom Brady, but you can look at the work that he did with Mac Jones his rookie year. I mean, you know, Mac Jones for most of his rookie year, you know, was he a lot better than Drake Maye was today? Yeah, he was. And that's because you need a certain type of quarterback in the system. And I think Drake can get there. I still think he's very young. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And I think it's going to be a struggle for a while. I think, you know, when you get into a new offense and a new play caller and new relationship, it's going to take 4 to 8 games for things to like really click. I know people want it today. Drake Maye, 400 yards, be an MVP candidate in week 1. It's just, it's not realistic.
Well, I want to go back to that thing that you said earlier. Are you intimating that May's not putting in some work behind the scenes when you talk about footwork and this and that, or you get the sense that he's not fixing some of the mechanical things that he needs to? Because we've attributed some of the high throws to him getting amped. We keep hearing about amped, but I mean, how much of that is him being amped versus just poor fundamentals and just letting it fly on some balls, or not having his feet set, or whatever it is that's going on there? And, you know, are you concerned he's not concerned he's not trying to fix it?
I don't know. I don't know what he is or isn't doing behind the scenes. All I can tell you is about the Drake Maye that I see on the field and on film. And I don't think he's made a lot of progress in terms of his fundamentals. Is that on the coaching? Is that on him? You know, probably a little bit of both. But like, you know, the first pass that he had to Pop Douglas, it was just like sloppy footwork. It was the same stuff we saw at North Carolina, where his feet get too narrow and now he doesn't have a good base and now he's sailing it. Did the same thing in the Vikings preseason game. And I'm sure they're correcting this stuff in practice and going over drills, and I'm sure he does it better in practice, but they got to figure out why it's not translating to the game. I also thought he was sped up again. Even on, they ran like an RPO where he ran a toss. I think it was to Henderson.
To Henderson.
I don't even think, I thought the timing wasn't good on that. Like he just looks uncomfortable. And, you know, that's what you're going to get for a while, unfortunately. And, you know, at least now they have a lot of film, a lot of reps to work off of in live game situations. And, you know, another aspect of this is something else I talked about, you know, the type of camp that Mike Vrabel ran. And let's also not forget to mention that this is now 4 straight season openers that Mike Vrabel has dropped. And, you know, which team looked ready to go, better prepared, dial in? Now, it's a little bit different because the Raiders actually had some pieces, Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, veterans. You know, they're basically, most of their offensive line is back. And of course they have Bowers and Maye and all these guys. But they looked ready to go because they have a better nucleus that came back. The Patriots have a bunch of new guys, and there's only so much you can do in training camp to get them ready. And Mike took his approach, and it wasn't effective today.
I think that's the thing that's going to kind of irk a lot of people. Like, you're going to have, a lot of doomers freaking out over Maye, and that's understandable. But I think generally, if you just look at the whole thing, big picture, it doesn't feel much different. Like, it didn't feel hugely different than what you saw last year or even the year before. And I think that that's the scariest part. I'm not saying the entire operation isn't professionally run in a way that, last season's wasn't, because we know what a debacle that was, but we're talking about a lot of the same stuff, punting on fourth down 2 scores late in the game, sloppy play, defensive breakdowns, special teams issues, not being disciplined, giving up a 3rd and 20, late in the game there, which seals the game, where, Carlton Davis bites on a fake when all he had to be worried about was giving up 20 yards there. Just so many of those, both individual and team sort of things. It just felt like the same thing that we've been watching.
Yeah, and look, Rome wasn't built in a day. And
Right.
I was surprised by the overall sloppiness of the play. There were some, dumb penalties and, special teams penalties. And like, there were a couple like really bad punts. You had Borgalis missing a field goal. Like, it just wasn't, very buttoned up, which I think is probably my biggest surprise.
Right.
But I guess I shouldn't have been that surprised.
Why though? Why should you not
just
have been surprised by it?
Just because since basically the way the starters opened up the Commanders game, and not the offense, but the defense, I mean, it's been a rough watch. The joint practices in Minnesota, they got spanked in 2 preseason games. The Giants backups and 3rd stringers took it to their backups. That showed the depth. And it goes to, the camp that Mike ran. Like, I didn't think it was, I thought it was, pretty easy at one point in time, even though it did get better after I said that. At that point, I said it was the easiest training camp I've ever seen. And that's just a fact. It did get better after that. I will say that they put in a decent amount of padded practice work, but, I just think that when you look at the 2 teams, the Raiders and the Patriots, the Raiders had a bunch of guys back from last year, even though it's a new coaching staff. The Patriots basically turned over a lot of their roster. And considering the rules in the NFL right now, they haven't played in like 10 days. I guess it shouldn't have surprised us.
Another thing I wanted to circle back to that you hit on earlier is the offensive balance was really weird. And I know if Maye hit some throws, a lot of things might be different, but just in terms of the amount of times he dropped back to throw, this isn't a game where you went down 2-3 scores early and you had to throw it 46 times. You didn't have to throw it 46 times, but they did. And it's so just different. And again, is this a case of, well, that's just what they're going to be expecting us to do? You hear about Vrabel and the way he comes over here, and even the knock on him a little bit in Tennessee is too reliant on the run and old school smash mouth football and blah, blah, blah. His introductory press conference, we need to establish this. We need to play hard. We need to run the football. We need to do all of this stuff. And they run it 18 times and they pass it 46. How much of that has anything to do with what the Raiders did, or why did they go away from it so quickly? I'm not really sure. I mean, you couldn't really establish anything there on the ground. You can't get play action going. And, Maye's just dropping back to pass every single time, looking around and throwing. I mean, he missed some open dudes, but he's throwing to covered receivers, it felt like, for a lot of the game.
As far as the balance, I mean, both teams sort of went through it. Both teams could not run the ball, and they came out in the second half and they said they're going to throw. The difference was Geno Smith was just a lot better, and the Patriots had some, blown coverages in the back end. I mean, Geno Smith, who, is no spring chicken, set his own personal record with, I think, 9 pass plays over 20 yards. That's just ridiculous. Like,
right.
You can't make a living that way. As it relates to Drake, if Vrabel, it sounds like Vrabel was in on the approach because they couldn't run the ball. They weren't just going to bang their heads up against the wall. And the thing is, they were making, plays. Certainly the connection to Kayshon Boutte was working. Some of the stuff to Hunter Henry was working. And they come out on that drive, and there's like 6 straight passes by Drake Maye. There's a scramble by Drake Maye, and then suddenly there's inside pressure from Campbell and Wilson, and he throws the interception. And so, maybe in hindsight, when they look at the film, they'll be like, we'd like to stay a little bit more balanced. But it's just, I do think it goes to the confidence that they have in Drake, that they trust to put the ball in his hands, and they're fine with him learning as he goes.
It's hard to see it, Greg, from, without taking a look at the all 22s, and I know you'll look into it as well. But I mean, you're watching on TV, you can't really tell. You see Drake drop back to pass, and we're kind of relying on you guys a little bit. Like, okay, he threw it there, but he did have DeMario on a cross, or he had an outlet there and he could have used it. I don't know how many of those situations exist, or how many times he's just staring at a bunch of guys who were covered. But just from where your vantage point is up in the press box, every time he's dropping back to pass, what level of separation are you seeing from the receivers? Or did you see it this game?
I would say it's not great. I would say that, I think that's a reason why Travion Henderson played more than I expected him to play, at least for a while, because I think they look at it and he's just like sort of the one difference maker. I thought, separation is one thing. This offense has options built into it. I didn't think Drake took advantage of those. Sometimes it was just his accuracy was off. He's throwing behind guys. There was one where Drake checked it down to Travion Henderson, and Travion Henderson got blown up by the Raiders safety like almost immediately. That's the type of play where if Drake gets it to him, if he looks, boom, check down, and he gets it out there earlier, Henderson has a chance to make a play in space, which is what they want him to do. But instead, if you go back and watch it, Drake patted the ball an extra time, and that ball's late. Like the ball's late, the ball's inaccurate. Some of the decisions, like, there was a play, I think, first couple of passes or whatever, he was running like too much, where he had Diggs like right in front of him for like a little check down. Instead, he doesn't throw it. He scrambles for like 1 yard. And so that's just a situation where Drake's going to have to see the film and get it corrected.
Yeah. I mean, and it started off shaky, and that's what I didn't get. I mean, right out of the gate there, you had he ran on first down out of a clean pocket, and then he sails a throw to somebody else. So it started that way. That stuff seemed to get past it in the first half. And then in the second half, the Raiders upped the pressure just a little bit, it looked like, and he just didn't look like the same guy.
I thought the Raiders definitely in the second half, I thought, the adjustments that they made offensively and defensively were more effective than what the Patriots did. I think they got in a situation at halftime where they were like, we're not afraid of any of these guys, running by us. This is where like a Kyle Williams could come in, where they're just like, none of these guys are going to run by us. So why don't we just play more man and bring pressure? And the Patriots didn't really have an answer for that because, they're not all that talented.
And that's what it's going to be. Greg, before I let you go, and we're going to transition, Greg's going to take off. We're going to bring in Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles also coming out of the Patriots locker room. It seemed like a mixed bag from Will Campbell, but I think he's getting maybe more heat than he deserves. He had the really unfortunate kind of last series there where he, gives up a sack and then commits that false start penalty there that knocked them back to 4th and 10, and the curious decision to punt, which I do want your take on that as well. On the whole, though, there was another sack, which I thought Drake Maye ran into. It wasn't necessarily Campbell's fault. I think the game announcers attributed it to Campbell, but I felt like Maye stepped into that one. I thought for the most part, he held his own. He had another false start earlier. This wasn't the nightmare, oh my God, we drafted a bust at left tackle debut that some people appear to be making it out to be. So again, I'm just curious your overall impression on Will Campbell in his NFL debut.
I thought it was pretty good, overall. The one that you mentioned, I did not think that was a sack on Campbell. That actually happened because Max Crosby lined up over Jared Wilson and hopped inside, basically beat him and Bradbury. and that caused Maye to move, and Campbell was doing a good job against this guy. He did have one against Tyree later on. The false start was unfortunate, but, you know, I thought he did a pretty good job. And, you know, the 4th and 10 punt, you know, I don't agree with it. I mean, you know, I can understand Vrabel's point, and he was really critical. That was a freaking horrible punt by Bryce Behringer. The official just kept going up the sideline, and that's just, if you're going to execute that scenario, you need to pin them deep, hoping they're going to run the ball. You stop them, you get short field, and then you have a chance. So, I mean, I'm not hugely critical of it, but it was just overall like just sloppiness all around by the Patriots.
Okay, so the last thing I'll ask you before we let you go, it's you know, we have this on the Garden Report. We should probably need one here on the post-game show as well with our panic meter. But you know, Red being pinned, you know, panic level of concern. Where are you right now on your panic meter after watching this first game against a so-so opponent and seeing, you know, all of the things that we saw and have talked about in the first 20 minutes or so here on the show?
I would say I'm actually still pretty low.
Yeah.
I predicted that the Patriots would lose this game. I actually predicted the Patriots to start 0-3, but still finish 9-8. Of course, that was before the Dolphins couldn't do anything against the Colts. So maybe now week 2 is in play, or very much in play. You know, I've just been through this before, you know, too many times, and you get these new coaches and a lot of turnover on the team. It just takes time. And, you know, that's going to be sort of my message to Patriots fans is like, you know, you just have to have patience. Yeah, Mike Vrabel's a really good coach, and he's got a really good coaching staff, but they're not miracle workers. I mean, when you bring in, I don't even know how many it is. I think it's like 40% of their 53-man roster wasn't here last year. All that stuff takes time, and you really need the bullets flying in the regular season. Get used to playing, get used to being tackled, making tackles. That was another thing that was sloppy today. Some of the tackling out there, you know. But I think with the type of guys that they have and the coaching staff that they have, I do think this is an operation that can start to get this stuff cleaned up pretty quickly, and they can start going in the other direction. This is just where they're at. And I think it was a little bit of fool's gold if you believe that the Patriots were a lot better than what they showed today.
Yeah, and again, the optimism at the beginning of training camp, you could see as time wore on. I think people started to see it. You know, you talked about it on, you know, Boston Sports Journal and, you know, some of your many appearances. Like, you're looking up and down this roster, it's the same. You got about 38, 40 guys worth keeping, and then everything else is a shoulder shrug. They're lacking depth. You're lacking explosive playmakers. And you could almost see Mike Vrabel, the wind come out of his sails a little bit from where they started and where they ended up, with the realization that, like, we got a long ways to go. And I don't think that fans are necessarily ready to be patient right now, because you've dealt with whatever you've dealt with for the past 2 or 3 seasons. We're hoping to see a lot better, certainly out of Drake Maye at least. And again, Greg, I use this example all the time, and you know, you'll remember back then, but the early years of Drew Bledsoe, nobody cared if they won or lost. You just were happy that you had the guy, you know? Oh, we've got a guy. And I remember that opening week loss to Miami in 94 or whatever that was. And they go back and forth throwing for 400 yards and a bunch of touchdowns, and they lose the game, and nobody gave a crap. It was the best, happiest day of our lives because we had a quarterback finally. And you wanted to see a little bit more out of Maye, and I think people would have felt better if they lost. They looked like last year. Drake Maye struggled. It was an overall tough day for Patriots fans. So on to Miami next week. We will let Greg Bedard go, but we're going to bring in Taylor and Mike in a little bit. Greg, thanks a lot for joining us. And, you know, the rest of you guys stay with us. Thanks, Greg.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yep. So we are setting up. We will have Taylor Kyles and Mike Kadlick jump on. Thank you guys for hanging out here and joining us on the Patriots post-game show. We do this every week for those of you who are new to it. Taylor Kyles and Mike Kadlick for CLNS, always down there at the games, covering it in person, just getting out of the locker room. So we'll get some insight for what they're doing. Before we move on to that, we want to tell you about our sponsors over at Prize Picks. And this might be the best time to get in on the action with Prize Picks. If you haven't signed up already, sign up now. And if you do and can support us, it really helps. If we get support for our sponsors, it makes it easier to be able to bring you this free content, which we like to do all the time. You see the deal on the screen right now. Play 5, get 50 instantly. Pick more or less on 1 or 2 players, and that's all you have to do. You can play it a lot of different ways. You can cross games, you can cross sports. I personally like to lock in on one and look at both sides of the ball and decide how I want to play it. And it just is easier for me to go that way, but that's not how you have to do it. And if you're here, you're following along football action, this is the best week to get in on it. So again, download the app, use that code CLNS, play 5, get 50 instantly when you enter that code. Once again, play 5, get 50 instantly on Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Prize Picks, run your game. Bailey, bring me up full here. I want to once again thank you, scenes producing, and Amit Bhattacharjee in the field. Bailey, you can kill the Prize Picks B-roll here. There we go. And we are back. Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles are setting up on the field. As we said, we'll get those guys on in just a little bit. We're also going to hear from Mike Vrabel momentarily on the Patriots game. And, he was, I don't know whether you watched it or not, he wasn't freaking out, but he was calm. I think he was understanding to not put too much on Drake Maye. He was asked point blank about Maye and how he did, and he led with the good over the bad. I thought he made some throws. I thought we had to clean some stuff up, but I do think Vrabel's looking at this very much like, Greg was looking at it. Rome's not built in a day. We're going to have to figure out, how to make this happen a little bit at a time, and hopefully each week you're getting a little bit better. I'm not sounding a full alarm yet. I'm definitely a little bit worried, mainly because you can't convince me just from watching this game if I didn't know, and we talked about this with Greg, you couldn't convince me that it wasn't Mayo and Van Pelt on the sideline. I'm not saying Mayo and Van Pelt that they're embarrassing worst, but this just looks like an amateur or sloppy, unprofessional football team that lacks the talent and lacks the ability to make the plays when it matters. And that's what they were today. Not maybe as bad, but not markedly better. And again, we're looking at year 3 of this. You had the Patricia Judge debacle before, and you're like, oh, we'll change that out and it'll be fine. And then you have Belichick coming in with Bill O'Brien, and that doesn't work. And then you have Mayo and Van Pelt. I mean, year after year after year, you're just not seeing that professional product you're accustomed to getting out of Foxborough. And it's just, who are these guys right now? And again, you bring in a guy like Vrabel, great manager, game manager, supposed to be able to make adjustments and all that stuff. And it just wasn't there. It wasn't there today, especially in the second half. You never like to see entering the second half with a lead and then getting your doors blown off in the second half. The Raiders were a much, much, much better team. Here's Mike Vrabel talking about the game right afterwards.
Some good positive plays and really good command of what we were doing. And then there were times where, maybe he missed somebody, and, we'll have to see. And, it's a challenge playing quarterback in this league, and we got to help them out. We have to be more balanced. We have to use our run actions and be able to run the football. It's hard to turn it into a drop back passing game in this league.
And there he said it. We talked about it a little bit, but the run pass actions being a thing, right? Like, they just didn't get the running game going. And again, I'm not entirely sure why. A thing we're going to talk about that I think people are going to want to know about is whether or not, I know that this is going to be a knee-jerk reaction, but whether it's just, Greg mentioned it, you don't have guys who could beat you down the field. You're probably going to need to get Kyle Williams in there a little bit more, but it's still early. And he's a rookie, but you'd like to see that increase, because you have to get guys who can scare the defense a little bit. And you don't have it outside of Henderson. You're going to have to find a way to get him on the field more, just to have some more playmaking ability, because right now you got a nice little thing with Booty and Maye, and they got a nice little connection, and every once in a while pop, you got a little bit out of Diggs, but again, there's just no one to be super worried about right now. And I think that that's a continued problem. I forgot Mac Hollins played for the Patriots. I forgot completely. And apparently he does, but he was out there too. And again, I'm not sure what was going on. We'll bring in Taylor Kyles and Mike Kadlick here now and see what's going on with you guys. Hi guys.
Howdy. What's going on,
I'm
John?
gonna,
And
I'm
Sam
gonna
Knox.
do this instead. I'm gonna do this instead. Taylor, I like freshly shorn. I like that for the opener.
Nice. I wanted to go with the Brock Bowers, just clean, nice shave.
Yeah. So what are we looking at, guys? Where do you want to start? We had Greg Bedard on earlier, and gave his take on things. And obviously, I think from a fan perspective, Maye is going to get the most talk. So I'll just ask you guys real quick, just your snapshot of Drake Maye's performance. Are we overreacting? Are we underreacting? Or reacting just right? That it was shaky and a little bit concerning.
I would say it was disappointing. Yeah. I think we knew there were the things that went wrong today are things that crept up. Like my biggest issue with Drake throughout this summer has been the accuracy and how he has a tendency to sail passes, especially over the middle, that end up putting him in the offense in very dangerous situations. Like there were 2 or 3 tip balls that could have gotten intercepted today that weren't. So that was disappointing. I know he said he probably could have pulled the trigger a couple more times, but that he was overall seeing the field well. That's obviously encouraging. But then in the second half, when the pass pro falls apart, it became a lot harder to actually judge how Drake was playing. Didn't put the ball in harm's way for the most part, outside of the errant throws, which is something else we saw this summer. But the accuracy, man, that has got to get under control, because you're talking about routine plays where you just got to get it into his receiver's hands and let them work after the catch, which was going to be a big X factor in this game. Was, all right, it's rainy, probably can't throw downfield as much as we want to. Let's try to have the pass game be an extension of the run as much as we can. And there were just too many times where Drake wasn't able to capitalize on very simple opportunities. So for a quarterback where we come in and expect Drake Maye is going to be a reason you win games, and in this one, I don't think he's the reason you lost, but I think he's one of them.
Yeah, and I think it's been way too up and down for him. I mean, really throughout the course of his career. I know it's only game 1, but he comes out here early and he skies the throw to Pop Douglas on the first play. He does the same thing when they get down to the red zone. They had Booty on a one-on-one. He comes off it, doesn't set his feet right, and puts it over him in the end zone too. And then he does come back in that second half and he puts together a touchdown drive.
Second quarter.
Second quarter, excuse me, not second half. The second half was
very
where it
different.
went downhill. Yeah. Well, that's what Mike Vrabel talked about this week too, is they wanted to play better in the second half. And that was what he used, or that's what he said his experience was in these first games in the season, and they just completely fell apart in the second half. And I think there was one point in the second quarter, Taylor, where he locked in and he looked good and he started to sling the ball a little bit and he looked comfortable and he felt confident in the offense, and he was that throw on the back sort of hip/shoulder to Hunter Henry as he was falling with the defender on his side, and then he just put it in the right spot. He falls down.
That's awesome.
Easy for that was a really
cool
great throw. They were on the same page. It was. Now don't take this the wrong way, but how Brady and Gronk were always on the same page and they knew exactly where to put the ball and where I was going to be. It looked like something like that. So he was locked in and super, super good at that point, but then it just falls apart in the second half. And it's almost like I would rather him be not as good as he was at one point and not as bad as he was the other point, and just be a lot more consistent straight line. But it's still been a roller coaster for Drake Maye, even in week 1 this year.
And what do you think?
Do we have John?
Is John here?
Sorry, I was on mute. I've asked you guys this question a few times because again, it's not an agenda. It's just a question/concern. But again, when I'm looking at Maye from my far from expert viewpoint, I see a guy who looks like he's more concerned with what he's not supposed to be doing as opposed to doing what he does best. And I have talked about the Maye McDaniels marriage. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad one, but I do wonder if he's thinking too much or what he's thinking of, because again, we keep attributing some of this stuff to him being amped, which is fine. I can understand in the beginning, in the first series, he's got a super high throw there on the sideline. Was it to Douglas where he had him open? Yeah. And then earlier in that, he ran with no pressure on first down where he could have, stuck in there and made a throw if he wanted to. So again, maybe he's a little jacked up. That's fine. He settles down okay. It's more the second half. He got Mac Jonesy a little bit with, some of the pressure coming. He got a little skittish. He was a little bit off. He was stuck, I don't know if he was maybe stuck on, again, you guys see it better than we do because you're in the press box. I don't know if he's stuck on his initial read. I don't know if guys recovered the whole game. I don't know if he's looking downfield. I don't know if he's really just looking to take the profits and move on. What exactly is going on there? But he just didn't look comfortable for a lot of it. And you just don't see that swag that you saw and that's supposed to come with a guy like him. This is a guy you're comparing in play style to Brett Favre, and he's back there not really sure where he's supposed to be going with it, not, trying to make throws or, and again, there were some accuracy issues as well. He just looked uneasy and skittish to me for a lot of the game.
I didn't think that was really the case as much in the first half. Like, I think that
not the first half. I thought he settled down nice. Yeah.
And in the second, like, honestly, the first drive of the second half was really impressive. Like, they were playing with tempo. They were marching down the field. Then Morgan Moses and Mike Nwenu don't pick up the stunt. And then you get the interception.
Did he get hit as he threw? Could we get a
I think he definitely got hit as he threw.
Because the ball came out wonky.
And when it was in the air, I was like, when is this going to come down? So it was very
his hand got hit. Yeah.
Okay,
and then the hit kind of derailed everything. And then again, that's when the pass pro, like we said in the first half, the pass pro was very good. I was surprised how many times he was standing in the pocket and able to get through his reads. In the second half, if you want to say he was skittish then, yeah, for sure, because you could feel the pressure. Like, even in the booth,
right?
I think somebody said, like, a little. Max Crosby can just pin his ears back. So I think that's fair that maybe he started to kind of feel the heat in the second half, which it's the first game. Like, I don't want to necessarily kill him for that. Also, when it comes to not throwing, I know he admitted it. I need to see the tape. Like, I don't want to come out here and be like, oh, he's holding on to the football and not going downfield, because I have no idea if there were any options. If we do want to talk about the downfield passing attack, maybe we kind of mentioned this more, Kyle Williams, because Kayshon Boutte, the chemistry they have is awesome. Kayshon is a short to intermediate guy. He has flashes deep, but that's not his game. Pop is not a deep guy. Neither is Mac Hollins. And
neither is this version of Stephon Diggs.
Exactly. So it does make it hard, I think, for the defense to have any respect for what you're going to do deeper downfield. So once I get to see the film, I'll actually get a better idea of whether or not there are any missed opportunities. But when we talk about we talk about Drake wanting to do what he's not wanting to do what he's not supposed to do, I'm fine if he's not throwing the ball in harm's way, if it means he doesn't throw deep a couple of times a game early on. If we're in November and it still feels like he's gun shy, that's a very different story. But I didn't really think that was necessarily the case. I just think you're dealing with a receiver core where, especially once they kind of got away from, they didn't have a lot of opportunities to manufacture those X plays, as Mike Vrabel calls them. So I just think the way the second half went really did hurt Drake. But at the same time, the biggest thing for me by far was his inaccuracy.
Two things.
Well,
quickly,
just go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. Yeah.
On the skittishness with Drake, it's, again, concerning is not the right word because it is so early, but these are things like that. The second half drive is going great, and then he throws the pick. That's stuff that in the past, at least the last year and throughout training camp, that's the stuff that he's bounced back from, and he didn't have the tools around him, the pass protection in front of him to be able to bounce back from that today. So I think that's the concerning part, not necessarily on Drake alone, especially because, again, it's hard to, like you said, you got to watch it again. You got to watch the tape. You got to be able to see every position. But I'll kind of key in on Drake on one play, the offensive line on one play, a receiver or two here and there, just to kind of get a feel throughout the game. The plays that I was locking in on the receivers, they were kind of having a hard time getting open. There wasn't a great ability to scheme someone up other than a Travion Henderson on a quick out route or something like that. Obviously, Pop Douglas has a nice catch in the end zone for a touchdown, but I don't think anybody was getting open as much as we'd like to see. Again, we'll take a look on tape and see what it looks like. But at that point, I do think that it is a little bit more so the things around Drake Maye than actually his fault entirely.
Also, one last thing. I also think it's important to note, and Mike Vrabel said this also, you got to give Drake help. There was no ground game. Travion Henderson had like one good carry, and then from there, just the running into a wall constantly. For the Raiders, you could feel there were some creases. Like, they weren't dominant on the ground, but they at least gave Ashton Genty enough room where he could turn his legs and make things happen. It didn't feel like the Patriots had much of that at all, and that makes everything harder because then your play action and your run actions aren't quite as convincing as you'd want them to be because the defense doesn't really care if you run the ball because they've been stopping it all game. So I think that's another part of it that we need to mention is, like, Drake Maye, as much as we want him to be Superman and all that, especially early on, we cannot expect him to do it alone before he's gained confidence, before they have some kind of track record. So we should also acknowledge that this was a very one-dimensional kind of game script because the run game wasn't really giving you much.
3.3 yards a carry along of just 14.
Why?
Some of those are scrambles too.
Right.
Some of those are scrambles.
Exactly.
Why was that?
I know I actually did speak to Jared Wilson after the game, and I asked, like, where did you feel like you did well? Which he laughed because obviously they lost. It was kind of a hard thing for him to answer. And where did he struggle? He said he did feel he did well in pass pro. That held up. I didn't remember ever noticing him in pass protection, but he did say he needs to get better in the run game. That was something that he was clearly very adamant about. So my guess is that was part of it. I couldn't necessarily see because it didn't feel like there were a whole lot of runs. And, with the script of the game, I couldn't
Drake threw, 42 times or something like that, I think. So.
And I think Jared also said that there were specific things that the Raiders were doing and there were specific things the Raiders were doing to try to stop the run. I know that the crack toss, that was one of their best plays this preseason. Ramondre got blown up on a 3rd and 1 trying to get that done. So I'll need to obviously review the tape to see where the holes were, but Jared Wilson just flat out said, like, I know I need to be better in terms of run blocking. It was the first thing he said.
Yeah, and then the question will be, do you want to mix in a little bit more Travion Henderson in the run game, just simply for his explosive ability? But again, he got out there, and they tried to get him involved in some of the pass game. Again, it's week 1. We'll figure out where it goes from here. But it was certainly surprising that they weren't. If not, I didn't necessarily expect them to be a dominant run team. I was just surprised they didn't commit to it more. Even if it wasn't working great, it was still, this isn't a game you went down 2 or 3 scores early. I figured they would just keep at it just so you could get your play action going and you could maybe get some things to work for you later in the game. It was strange how quickly they abandoned it. We are going to hear from Drake Maye on his performance in just a little bit. We are also going to take a moment first to tell you about our pals over at Game Time. And again, this is an awesome time to get in on the action here because you've got the NFL season. You've got soon you're going to have, NHL, NBA season starting up, baseball, possibly heading into the playoffs, concerts, whatever you want to get to. Game Time is the place for you. You use that code CLNS, you get $20 off your first purchase. You have a best price guarantee here. You have all-in pricing. It's a super, which means no hidden fees. Everything is there for you. Zone deals. You save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. So again, just jump in there, and it's all you have to do. You could have gotten into today's Patriots game for $20, I think is what it was. Or what was it? It was down to 16, I believe. 16? Is that what it was?
I think it was low. It was 16-ish. I know at one point this morning I looked at it, was like it went from 60 to 40 and then it dipped with the rain. But yeah, keep using that Game Time app. It'll get you in here for very low prices here.
And the good thing about the loss is that those prices will stay low.
Exactly.
They will stay low. And let me stop here as well and get out of there. And I'm looking at it right now. If you want to get in on Miami, if you want to head down there, best deal you can get in Miami, $74 right now, get in fee. If you want to head down to, this is a great September trip. A lot of Patriots fans do go down for these
and Miami
games. When the
stunk today, John.
Yeah, they're going to
and Miami stunk. So those guys,
8, they lost.
Those guys might be looking to dump their tickets as well. So check it out. And we mentioned Drake Maye, again, 46 pass attempts, had that killer interception, which I feel really kind of turned the game around because, as Mike mentioned, they were marching down the field and looking okay here. Here's Drake Maye talking about his afternoon.
Yeah, just gotta be better. I think my decision on the first drive coming out was the one that killed the drive, and then I'm just gonna get the first down. I think I get the first down. We moved the ball well, and got in a rhythm. And I think just adjusting from halftime. I think I could do a better job of getting the guys and making throws, and the guys up front battled hard. I think they blocked pretty well up front. I thought, and like I said, just get the first down, and from there, I think just make some better throws. Be more accurate, and I think getting points out of that first drive would be huge.
Could you take us through the play that led to the interception?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought I had Diggs, over on the right, and got kind of look back at it on the film. You don't have a great look at it. I was thinking I missed it high. I think I got to step into it more. I think I may got hit up front, but that's just part of playing quarterback in this league. You got to step into the throw and take hits and be accurate, and just play back, and I can give 3 or 4 from me that help dictate the game. And it's just a bummer thinking back and looking back at those.
And there we have it. Drake Maye, interception, might have changed the game there. Kyle, Taylor, I want to hit something you said earlier. Run blocking wasn't there. And you said Jared Wilson, the rookie who started at left guard today, mentioned it. But you also mentioned that you didn't hear his name very often, which was great. And outside of that last drive, where I thought Will Campbell obviously had those back-to-back gaffes there, the false start penalty that knocks them out, puts him into 4th and 10, and they ended up punting. And the play right before that, where he gave up the pressure, I think Campbell didn't have a bad game either, but I think social media is reacting as if he was brutal, and I don't think that was the case at all. I thought even the sack, and I mentioned this with Greg, that was on Maye. Maye stepped into that. Campbell held his guy off there earlier in the game. So you don't know what I'm talking about?
I thought that was wasn't that the one where Ramondre tried to chip that one? And then because he got beat outside. Am I thinking of the right one?
Think so.
No.
Yeah,
It was inside. He held this guy, and Maye just walked right into it. And he took a sack earlier. And on the game coverage, they were attributing that to Campbell, and I don't think that was on him. But I'll ask you guys, snapshot of Campbell's performance. And again, obviously, you've got those couple of plays late. I feel better. I would have felt awful if he was just turnstile city and they had to bring extra help. That wasn't the case at all. I thought he held his own fine. I thought in general, and Taylor, you mentioned this as well, the protection was fine. You had times where Maye was sitting back there and he's looking around. He couldn't figure out what he wanted to do, but he had time. This was not the nightmare that I thought. I think the receivers are who we thought they were. I think the line actually acquitted itself fairly well, at least in pass pro.
I was definitely impressed by the rookies. Like you said, I didn't really notice Will. Now, again, the run game is another thing. They clearly weren't getting anything done, so there was an issue there. I'm not really sure how he did in that respect. But anytime I saw Will Campbell, it looked like he was pretty much holding his own. The issue is that his two biggest mistakes came in crucial moments where you're trying to come back, get a false start, and later on you get a third down false start where then Mike Vrabel, and I do not agree with this, you mentioned it, and really didn't sit well with me the more I thought about it, deciding to punt.
Awful.
It didn't.
Awful.
Yeah, that was not a good decision. So, but yeah, for the most part, it was encouraging. Only so much I can say for offensive linemen, obviously, just right after watching them. But I noticed Mike Nwenu. I noticed Morgan Moses. I actually didn't notice Garrett Bradbury either. Hopefully that's a good thing. But I mean, you definitely got to get better from your right side because you rely on those guys to be technically sound, and obviously on the sack they were not.
It's funny we go into this game and we think that they're gonna live and die by the run, and the run game is gonna be what what helps them. That the pass pro might be shaky, and again, we'll have to look at it again. But the pass pro held up okay, and the run game, whether it was the backs, whether it was the actual linemen, we'll have to see. But they kind of had nothing there, which was surprising to me. The couple plays I did watch Will Campbell in pass pro, I thought he was fine. He held guys off. Drake Maye was kind of getting the ball out quick on those plays too, so it wasn't like he was standing there and sticking guys forever. But those false start penalties on that last drive were brutal. I get it. It puts them in a bad spot. The lack of aggressiveness there, as you just mentioned, kind of pissed me off, for lack of a better term. Those are the kind of things where, like, over the last couple of years, the weight of this stadium comes onto the field and they back themselves up. They throw the white flag in and the crowd starts to boo. And I got flashbacks because the same thing happened today. Campbell goes back 5 yards on the false start. They switched the offense with the punt team and the place came in and booed again. And I was like, we can't do this again. And it's not that bad. You hope and pray it's not going to get that bad like it's been the last couple of years. But that was a play. I think they went from 4th and maybe 2 or 3 to 4th and 10-ish.
Something like that.
They were
4th and manageable.
They were
to
at
4th and long.
At that time of the game, there was less than 5 minutes left. The Raiders just went down and put it in the end zone on the drive before. Geno had thrown for almost 400 yards at that point. To give the ball back to them, to think you're going to get another stop was silly. I think they should have gotten more aggressive there and tried to get the first down to keep themselves in the game. Instead, they punt it. They do get the ball back. They go get a cheap 3 at the end, and then they make it a 1-score game instead of a 2. But I thought they should have been more aggressive there. I wasn't a fan of that at all.
Especially because they were aggressive on other 4th downs earlier in the game. So it's like, all right, wait a minute. Why now are you choosing not to be aggressive when you literally need this conversion to have any chance of probably staying in this game? Right.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. And again, so much of we talked about this with Greg. We're having a lot of conversations we had with the previous regime, punting on 4th down near midfield when you're down 2 scores late in the game, some of the sloppy play, missed tackling, poor execution, bad penalties. Were you guys hoping all in all for a more buttoned up professional outing from this team on the whole?
I will say defensively for sure, the biggest thing that stood out to me was the tackling. Or lack thereof, especially from like Robert Spillane, who was supposed to be automatic, was like one of the leading tacklers in the NFL last season, supposed to be a super reliable guy. Jalen Hawkins is kind of similar. Craig Woodson, like those guys were missing. I think Jalen Hawkins, Robert Spillane, and Christian Ellis, I think all missed multiple tackles. That was a huge disappointment for me. The pass rush the defensive line period was not great early on. That was very disappointing. They turned it on as the group that I'm most excited about. Like I keep talking about this edge group. people act like they're average, and I've been trying to tell people, like, no, like Harold Landry's legitimately
Sure.
good. Caleb Chaison's been good. Keon, I think, did struggle. I didn't see him make any impactful plays.
I
I
don't remember him.
Yeah, he was getting locked up, and when Caleb was in there, I felt like he was making an impact. So it was nice to see the defensive line start getting things going. Even the secondary, I thought, for the most part, like, which is crazy to say, obviously, in hindsight, like, the spine of the defense I do not think was good, but the cornerbacks in general I think were solid. But when you have like Jacoby Myers and Ashton Genty just getting all these yards after contact that they should not be getting, like, Jacoby Myers might have had one of his best yards after catch games that I've ever seen. I never saw him look like that with the Patriots. And for some reason, just like whiffing on tackles, like completely, like arm tackles, missing guys like completely, that was very disappointing for me. So if we're talking about a more buttoned up organization, especially the second half execution, I was hoping they'd be better. I also understand it's week 1. You're probably not going to get that. But for a Mike Vrabel team, I expect you to tackle consistently, and that did not happen today.
And there were a couple times in the secondary, too, that, I mean, they were kind of just getting gashed. And, like, talking about gotta have it situations. There was one of the gotta have it guys who, and this is kind of on a tangent here, but, like, Drake made a Kayshon Boutte when you need it, third and 5 to 3rd and 10. They're going to connect and they're going to get it. If you're in a 3rd and long on defense and you're a cornerback, you got to be able to lock guys up. You got to have it. We have to get this stop, whatever. And Carlton Davis gets toasted by Dante Thornton for like a 3rd and 25 and ends the game.
I can explain that one also.
Let's do it.
That
please.
was so Mike Vrabel did mention also, like, sometimes they have their plays, like we have a certain defense and they have a good call. That was a great call. In that situation, the Patriots were showing all out blitz, so you're thinking Gino's going to get it out fast. Although, I'm not going to lie, I think last year the same thing happened where Gino decided to take a shot. They kept guys in, and I think Thornton ran a double move.
Okay.
So Carlton Davis is thinking, oh, the first time he breaks, we're in an all-out blitz. I'm like he had done earlier. Like, Carlton Davis had a very good game.
Yeah.
He almost intercepted a throw to Dante Thornton, obviously tipped the ball to Brock Bowers that got intercepted. Like, he had a good game, but this was one where they had a really good decision. They know he's aggressive. He was aggressive, almost broke it up even. It took a really impressive effort from Dante Thornton because Geno Smith wandered through it. So that was one of those where I was like, I'm not mad. You just can't put yourself in these positions.
Sure.
But again, you put yourself in a hole, and on 3rd and 20, like, there has to be some level of awareness also. Like, you can't let this guy get behind you.
Right.
So there's a little bit of tug and pull where I'd probably like to ask guys once we get back in the locker room maybe what they thought. But I mean, still, you put yourself in a bad spot and then actually gave it up. So yeah, that was extremely disappointing.
Brock Bowers is also a stud. That toe tap catch on the sideline was nasty. Did he come back from the knee injury? I can't remember.
I don't think he did.
Came out. So
he did
see
not.
what happens there. But that kid's pretty damn good. So.
He is pretty damn good. All right, so I'll ask you guys this. We've talked about Maye and some of the other issues here. Let's first, the things you're walking away from today that most concern you going forward versus, it's one game. I'm not freaking out over this too. But is there any 1, 2 things or one from each of you that you're like, yeah, I wish this wasn't this way?
Drake's accuracy is just the biggest thing for me because I don't think it's something you just fix. I don't think he's going to come out next week and it's just going to immediately be better, especially because it's been a consistent issue. That is the biggest one for me is like Drake can make all the right reads. He can do everything well, but if the ball is not getting to where it's supposed to be, especially as an offense, it's going to throw over the middle a ton. Like we already saw, like I mentioned earlier, I think there were 3 or 4 tip balls today that could have been intercepted because when it's just hanging up in there and that's where all the defenders are, you're putting yourself into really compromising positions. So obviously there's a lot to work on for the offense, but you expect Drake to at least take what's there. And if he can't not only not take what's there, but actually turn those into potentially negative plays, that for me is something that I am sincerely worried about moving forward.
Yeah, it's that, and it's sort of the consistency from the whole operation, right? You know, like there's times where there was a little bit of a hesitation, and again, the field was messy today. Guys slipping a couple times, so Drake has to come off a second read. Starts to get a little shaky and tries to make something out of nothing. It doesn't really get there. It's just the consistency for Maye. For me, it's and the accuracy is included in that. But where it's like he literally looks like a man possessed and dialed in on one drive where he's hitting this guy here, he's hitting that guy there. He's super accurate, and then the next drive he comes out and he puts the ball close to harm's way a couple times. It's stuff you can't have. And again, I'd just rather him be more even keeled. Defensively, you mentioned the tackling. That's one. I'm loving the pressure that they got on Geno Smith today, even though he still was able to throw for like over 300 yards today. But that's beside the point. And I think that's something where we talk about like what's going to stay and what, contenders, pretenders, if you will, for this game, like what's actually going to stick and what was just an anomaly. I think the pressure the Patriots put on the quarterback is going to stay. So that's obviously promising.
And I don't think the tackling is going to be a long-term issue, but it's something that, like, in defensively is right at the top of the list of, you can show us next week that this is not going to be something that we need to worry about, but you got to get it fixed immediately, because if you don't tackle against the Dolphins, they're not going to be scoring 8 points. They're probably going to be scoring a whole lot more.
I want to get Pop Douglas more involved on offense too. He had that one drop, which I didn't like. I know
Taylor's out.
I'm not
Taylor's
out on
out on
Pop.
him.
It's Drake. It's like how Drake and Pop work together just worries me, because I think that Drake,
Long-term
with
work?
the accuracy issue, I just think it's really hard to have a receiver who's 5'8" for any quarterback. Like, even going back to the Brady days where Edelman, like Wes Welker would say, I've never had a quarterback who can consistently hit me in stride because I am a smaller target. Like, it's not easy. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that can consistently work with guys who are shorter, and 5'8" is like barely cutting it in the NFL. Pop is a dynamic player. Nothing against him. Obviously, a very bad drop there. Like, you got to be better than that. And like, I'm sure he's trying to turn up field probably. But just with Drake being as inconsistent as he is, and we see most of the guys he's really comfortable with are bigger guys. Where Kayshon Boutte's 5'11", but he is a big target with the wider catch radius. So I'm not out on Pop, but I just wonder if Drake is capable of maximizing his abilities as someone who is inconsistent, especially when he's thrown to the short area of the field.
So what is it with the like? Why?
Sorry,
why the inaccuracy at this point? Is it is it caused by pressure? Is it fundamentals? Is he not focused? Like, because as Mike mentioned, sometimes he's just putting it exactly where he wants to put it. I mean, I guess that's just how accuracy works. You got to be accurate all the time as a quarterback. It's just to miss so badly so many times. You're not talking about, we've seen bad quarterbacks in the NFL. They miss everything. They miss all the throws. May can make all of the throws, but again, just to see him sail guys who are wide open so frequently, or throw behind them, or not throw in rhythm, what is that there?
And you mentioned throwing behind, because there was a Diggs third down where he threw it, and I think he went for it on fourth down, but it was behind him. And it's even small things like that where it's not always sailing it. Sometimes if you throw to the wrong shoulder, your receiver has no chance of getting that extra yard or two that they need after the catch. And it's also, again, it's hard to know for sure, because like I haven't seen the tape even in the summer. Obviously, it's training camp. I can't see. It's hard enough to know what's going on. But I would guess a lot of it is the footwork. And like, especially when your clock is sped up or when there's pressure, sometimes your mechanics break down. If you're Drake Maye, you have the talent to make up for that sometimes, but you have to have some kind of base and foundation to work on. And I think maybe that's just still coming along, especially he's in a new system. Maybe there's some things going on where he's thinking and he's not able to be as attuned in his footwork as he wants to be. I'm not sure. This is purely speculation, but I would guess it starts with his feet. And why exactly that's happening is something that maybe we can ask him later on this week.
Oddly enough, Alex Van Pelt was as up and down, or more so down, as that offense was last year. He was the quarterback guy. He's the quarterback whisperer. He's this footwork guru. And Drake kind of dialed it in last year, and there wasn't as many accuracy problems as we may have thought that came into the year. And now it's kind of starting to tick up again. So
yeah, that's what bums me out.
We haven't got a ton of game film on him, so that's where, again, I hate to, and I know Taylor does this a lot, but it's kind of how he works, right, Taylor? We don't want to make too many decisions until we're actually able to see what happened and why. And if it is
no doubt,
then we'll be able to.
The number of times I've been positive something happened and looked at the tape and was like, I'm going to delete that tweet.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is. It's even harder for all of the people who saw it on television, because you don't know what he's looking at. You don't know if he had a shot to hit a receiver, missed it, had to move on to his next read, or just didn't see something, or locked in somewhere else. So you're not really sure. And then he's like, "Oh crap, where do I go now?" And he gets sped up, and that leads to inaccuracy. Again, I'm not, it's hard to say there. It just is a bummer, because you don't want to see regression on that in that regard. You were hoping to see him step forward, and again, he had a couple of good joint practice sessions where he looked good, but he didn't look great in those preseason games. And now we've got it in a regular season game where you're getting a mixed bag performance. It's just not a good enough team to not have Drake Maye elevate them. So you're not going to win a lot of games if Drake Maye doesn't clean some of that stuff up. Couple other questions. I'll because we want to get to the good stuff too, but I want to ask, what does Mac Hollins do?
Blocks.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also a weird game. Like, I don't want to get on Mac Hollins. He was playing well in the summer. Like, I'm not going to use this one game to dump on the guy. Yeah, like also there was a throw where he was coming out of the break and the ball wasn't really, it was on him fast. It was kind of out there. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not doing the
Okay.
trash Mac Hollins thing. I don't know.
I like that question though. What does Mac Hollins do? I mean, again, he does.
Gonzo told us in that one practice. He
blocking
said he
wide
blocks.
receiver.
No. I know. It's just I looked at the snap count. It's just one of those things. Again, when you're watching from home and not at the game, you're not even aware who's out there sometimes, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah, it doesn't
if
spread out
ball-
to the
if
sidelines.
balls aren't going his way, that's fine. But then I saw a snap count, and I'm like, Mac Hollins has played the second most snaps. I was like, I forgot he played for the Patriots. So like it was more of a matter of, again, I know this. You're talking about red zone threat, and they didn't get a lot of opportunities, and this and that. I was just curious what the Patriots thought they wanted to do on offense. So I guess if I were to ask you, like, what do you think the plan was today? Did it look like they were trying to attack certain areas? Did it look like they were trying to get certain people involved? Did it look like they were working part of the field? What were they trying? What was their game plan or their plan of attack against this team and this defense?
I felt like a lot of it was just trying to pick them apart underneath over
Right.
the middle, which is one of my game plan notes. It's like, these are not great linebackers. You do want to try to like get some vertical stretch to get them going downfield, and then just keep popping it to like Travion Henderson or Mondre or Hunter Henry, just sitting in those voids and either just dink and dunk and move the chains. And if you get an explosive because they get greedy, that's awesome.
Right.
That felt like what the plan was to me. I also think they wanted to run the ball a lot because Matt Collins and Kayshon Boutte being your starting receivers, that tells me you're trying to run the ball.
Right.
You want to get those guys close to the formation and really get them on safeties or what have you. So, and the fact that like Stephon Diggs was more of a rotational guy, Pop was as well. And they were, I don't know exactly how the splits went. I know they rotated in the slot on that first drive specifically, but that was my biggest takeaways. I think they wanted to run the ball, wanted to at least create the presentation of wanting to run the ball. And obviously they weren't able to generate very much on play action, and the run game didn't do anything either. And Drake Maye is missing all the short throws. So when you put all that together, it's very hard for an offense to have any kind of consistent success.
And I know we said it a few more times, but especially with the weather, I'm kind of surprised they didn't lean on the ground game more. Like, I felt like that was going to be their plan, but with Drake throwing it 40 plus times, hitting, 30 whatever completions he had, it's like they were trying to get it more extension of the run game, pass game type stuff where, again, get it to guys in space, let them beat guys one-on-one. But again, when Drake Maye is going to miss you left and right and up and down, that's not going to be the extension of the run game you want it to be. So it felt like that was the plan, but I am surprised that they didn't try and run the ball more, because you would like, that's one of those things where eventually just hand the ball off, get it going. And you almost get better with reps in that, where guys aren't, blocking as well at one point here, and then they kind of rebound if you just keep letting them go. And it's
like eventually the levees break.
Exactly.
And a lot of the time the defensive front just can't hold up anymore.
Exactly. So I'm surprised they didn't do it, but yeah, it seemed like the short passing game was more so the plan than running, which I was surprised about, especially with the weather coming down so hard.
I like Josh McDaniels a lot. I think a lot of the criticisms of him are kind of BS.
Sure.
One thing that people probably remember is Josh is known for abandoning the run when it doesn't work early on. Again, I need to see the film and say, okay, maybe it was so bad that he was just like, I don't trust you guys. But that's not exactly foreign for Josh McDaniels to get away from the run game if it's not working.
The other one was the 3rd and long screen pass that he pulled out today. That was the Josh McDaniels special. Yeah. It's like 3 or 4 guys in the press box like,
but then he also had some cool
Josh
stuff
is
too.
Back. Oh, 100%.
He had like a power read.
Yeah,
he had like a power read where he gave it to Travion Henderson, or he gave it to a running back, but also had the option to shovel pass to Antonio Gibson. Like, you started the speed option, the zone read. Like, we're starting to see different elements of this run team, and maybe and it's also early. There's a ton of stuff that they are probably practicing they weren't doing in front of us. So I think there's an element of that as well, where maybe he's not comfortable because if they're down, you don't really want to put them in a compromising situation. Whereas if you have a lead, maybe you're more comfortable calling some more things you don't have a ton of reps with, but you think can be successful and get them on film. But yeah, it was upsetting because there were some things that were very intriguing, but it got to a point where I just don't think he trusted the ground game.
All right, let's end on some happy, fun, sunshine, positive stuff. Things that you were pleasantly surprised by and you think could bode well for the future of this team, because it's going to be pretty gloom and doom. There's going to be a lot of people looking for bridges to jump off of after this one. And there's going to be a lot of people who are freaking. I mean, again, just based on social media, this chat, and just the vibe, people are freaking about Maye. They're freaking about McDaniels. They hate Ramondre. There's a lot of.
What did Mondre do? He didn't fumble. I was actually hyped about that. Right. I was really happy.
Ball security from Ron.
But give me the things where you're like, this this is a good thing, and this is going to be.
Booty is an NFL wide receiver.
Yes, he is.
That's my takeaway from today. 6 catches, over 100 yards. Drake Maye trusts him in gotta have it situations. He looks like he can block, he can catch the ball. He continues to tick up and up and up, and he was consistent today once again, going for 100 piece. I thought that was good stuff from Keyshawn Booty. I think to have him in that wide receiver room, which is, kind of hit or miss at some point, as we know, and as we just went over, Booty has been Mr. Consistent. I'm happy that they have him in that room.
That chemistry is building with Drake on the back shoulder fades. That's just going to open up actual fades once defenders are thinking about it and saying, okay, I'm going to play this low. Booty has that build-up speed. That's going to allow him to make some more explosive plays. For me, I'm going defense. I'm talking edge rush. I was really impressed by those guys. I need to see more K'Lavon Chaisson. I don't know why he didn't play more. I'm a Keon White fan, but I just feel like his development on the edge is still very much a work in progress. And Harold Landry, he had the cleanup sacks, but he also won with a bull rush. He won clean against DJ Glaze, beating him outside. I've been very adamant that Harold Landry was not used well in Tennessee's scheme last year because they basically just had him playing contain all the time. Now he has more opportunities to not only pin his ears back, but also benefit from a very dominant interior defensive line and the blitz and all those things that were creating trouble. So it was really nice to see the edge rush, at least, K'Lavon Chaisson and Harold Landry show what they had today.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw mine in and just reiterate something I said earlier, is the rookies on the offensive line, particularly Campbell. I can't remember a guy that I feel so many people wanted to fail as much as Will Campbell. I can't quite figure it out. Everyone's mad about the pick, mad that they picked based on need, mad that they picked at a guy with short arms, and he's going to suck and we're going to need another one and this and that. I feel like there's way more negativity surrounding a guy who's got, a great attitude, clearly working hard to get better,
he was pissed about the loss, dude. It was uncomfortable. He was really unhappy. Every question was just like, I got to be better. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I suck today.
Good physical traits. This is a guy, who you like. Obviously you want him to succeed. I like this guy a lot. So I'm obviously looking for reasons to, but again, I thought he held up mostly, pretty well, in pass pro on this game, and again, obviously had those couple of issues late, and people are going to hang a lot of the loss on him because of that. But again, I'm getting a lot of chatter where Campbell was a disgrace. He's a disaster. I don't get it at all. And I thought he held up well. I thought Wilson held up well. I thought Bradbury is not a rookie, but those are your 3 question marks on the offensive line are less question marks for me after today. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but you had no idea what you were going to get. It could have been, we saw what happened. Who did the Chiefs draft at the top of the second round? No, last year.
Kingsley Suamataia, who is now their left guard.
Yeah.
Who they tried to make a tackle, and it was a disaster. And that was my fear. That was a fear here, is what if he can't play this at all? Because they pinned a lot of hopes on him being able to hold down this position. And without that, that's going to be a problem. They can't block. They're not going to be able to do anything this season at all. So I feel better about it because the O-line's not the worst O-line that we've ever seen in our lives, which is what it was last year. And that's a very positive thing. Seriously. There's that. And again,
there was 4 backups last year. Hell yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah. I thought, there were some things, some big gaffes from the secondary, but overall I thought they covered fairly well. I was going to ask you guys just real quick, the insistence on sticking to man the entire time. I know they got burned. I felt like every time they did that and they tried to bring pressure, Bowers leaked out and bit them, and they had a lot of big and explosive plays there. Just your thoughts on their game plan there. I know that's the style they want to play. This is the scheme. This is one of the reasons some guys, they talked about whether it be Peppers or Duggar, don't necessarily fit what they're trying to do because they want to be able to do that and play aggressively. Did you think that worked today? Should they have mixed it up a little bit more? Were they playing it almost exclusively all game, or did they mix in some zone and show more versatility than it looked like? Or was it just, this is what we do now?
Well, they've said they want to play man. So, that's going to be what they do every single week. And that's where, if teams beat you in a certain way, you have to figure out how to.
Are they good enough too?
Like Vrabel said. I think, I think today was just an instance where, a few times they got burned badly. There was the Michael Mayer play where he leaked out, where it's like they tried to do the bootleg. Everyone is covered. I'm looking front side thinking, oh, he has to run or they're going to get the stop. Michael Mayer leaks out late when I think whoever was in coverage probably thought he was going to stay in. Then you have the play where Jalen Hawkins gets picked. Like, that's just a tough play where, usually you would hope.
Right,
No, the Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
where he, Hawkins had outside leverage, so he's already at a disadvantage. Gets barely kind of hit, and that was all Bowers needed to just turn up field. And then the Thornton one where, Carlton Davis bites, and then still is in position to try to make a play on the ball. So I need to look again to see if man was a problem. My issue was more with Jacoby Myers and Brock sneaking behind the defense on play action. That was my biggest fear coming into this game, was if you let them get behind the linebackers, that's what's much more intimidating than having to play these guys in man coverage. Even Del Pettis played Brock Bowers in man coverage pretty well. So I don't think that was the issue. I just think that in a close game like this, those explosives and those X plays are magnified, especially considering the game was basically iced on man coverage. There was a key conversion where you thought you had them dead to rights on fourth down and they convert. And then the Brock Bowers one. The play that everybody's going to think about for Brock is the play he had along the sideline. Great catch against zone coverage. And then the one where he just hits turbo and has the 30 whatever yard gain against Jalen Hawkins, which just, that's a tough spot to be in.
I'll just be curious. I kind of mentioned it before, but once Gonzo's healthy, they'll have better, obviously a better starting two corners, and then sort of the backups roll in from there. So I think Gonzo will be fine in that regard, obviously. And then that should hopefully just trickle down throughout the road.
Better matchup opportunities.
Exactly. Right. So again, we'll see. I'll be curious if he comes back for week 2. I know that's a conversation for next week, and we'll go with that from there. But if we're
going to talk about it plenty,
we will. But my thing with Gonzalez, and I don't know if we want to close on this or not, we can get to something else after, but if he's going to be out for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when and why didn't they put him on injured reserve? Now, again, it's early and we'll see what happens, but if he's out there for week 2,
spicy.
There's no questions asked. So
I'm staying off that one for now.
Yeah. Well, again, heading next week, the Dolphins, the loss to the Colts today, 33-8, one of the biggest debacles you will see in week 1. If you guys are worried about what you saw with the Patriots today, try being a Dolphins fan. They're
Daniel Jones.
They're having a tough game.
Daniel Jones's legs, by the way. Yeah. Daniel Jones's legs.
Couple tutties on the ground.
Yeah. That's where they're heading next week. So we will have you covered throughout the week leading up to it. We'll hear from the Patriots. Taylor and Mike will be down in Foxborough covering all your Patriots news and delivering all of your Patriots needs. Of course, we're going to have a slew of podcasts on the CLNS Media Network coming tomorrow, including a live Patriots Daily at some point in the day, a live Pat's Interference film study with Andrew Callahan and Mike Giardi. Yeah, it's pretty sexy. Who knows what else is going on there? Yeah.
Who the hell do they think they are?
Yeah,
I know.
That's the only thing I'm good at, guys. What the hell?
And Taylor Kyles is going to break out Drake May Monday, and you're going to get in on some Drake May action here and check out how some of that stuff goes. You can catch Mike Kadlick stuff over on SI.com and of course here on CLNS Media, and of course follow Taylor Kyles for all of his football knowledge, as he is the hardest working man in all of North America. Never stops watching, never stops looking at film, never stops tweeting, never stops talking. He does it all. He does it all. But thank you guys for hanging out with us. Not a great week 1 as the Patriots fall, of course, to the Raiders 20-13. Quick shout out once again to our pals over at Prize Picks. Use the code CLNS, play 5, get 50, #1 daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Make sure you check it out. And of course, Game Time, check that out as well. Game Time app, download it, take the guesswork out of buying tickets, create an account, code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Get in on the action, get in to see the games. And as Taylor mentioned, the price is going down. Patriots better start to win some games here, and we'll see how it goes. But thank you guys again for watching. John Zannis, Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks, guys.